Howdy y'all. So today we're going to do our bench seat.
Stand back on the road, back on the road, and back on the road, back on the road. Stay to your side,
Hi folks, so thank you for stopping by. If you would like to learn how to build a camper van like this yourself, then please check out my other YouTube videos. So if you guys have found these videos helpful, you can help me out in a big way by picking up a copy of my first ever album that my brother and I recorded in Nashville late last year. Any proceeds will go to future recording projects, as well as taking the band on tour and hopefully promoting it. I'll leave a link in the description and talk a little bit more about it at the end of this video.
So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to measure the tallest item that I'm going to be having inside this van. We want to make sure that both our bench seats here, this one here and this one here, are going to be exactly the same height so that the bed is nice and even. Alternatively, you may wish to build it simply to a height that suits you for storage purposes. So find whatever height you want to build this to and figure that out. Okay, as I have limited height in my van, I'm building mine to the tallest point of either this toilet or the fridge, depending which one is the highest. This fridge, for example, is 32 centimetres, and the toilet is about the same. Maybe a little bit more actually. Let's say 33 for the toilet. So we're going to go with that height of 33 centimetres. Don't forget you need to add your height plus the height of the timber. So this is 33 centimetres, for example, and the height of my timber will be 1.8 centimetres. So I need to build all of this to 34.8. Great, so now we know our height, we can go ahead and start making our frame for this first part of the bench seat. I'm going to try and utilise these spaces here for storage purposes. So what we're going to do first is create a rectangular frame. I'm going to have to miss out this cross section here because there's the engine under here, and of course I won't be able to run a piece of timber across the back. So I'm going to work on some supporting beams later for that section. But we'll do our best to create a rectangular frame, and then we'll build the storage boxes within that. So let's get cracking on that. Of course, again, like our kitchen unit, if you don't have something in your way here, you can just create a rectangle, and that's going to be a hell of a lot easier. So we're going to go ahead and take some measurements for the length of our first part of the bench seat. You've got to take into account that you've got things like these beams here that are going to obstruct your frame. I'm going to measure it from this side here to there, which gives us our widest points, 114.5. We've also got these little parts here, these little hinges, so I'm going to make sure I'm sitting away from those. So the timber we're using today is labelled as white wood. It's basically like a pine. It's light in weight and cheap to buy, and it's sturdy enough for what we're doing. This is 18 millimetres wide. I did want to get something that was a couple of millimetres wider, but they didn't have any in stock, but it should be fine because we're only doing a small frame. So if you're doing something that's a bit longer, you could go for anything between 18 millimetres and sort of 21 millimetres wide. That should be plenty enough. You don't really want to add any more weight or cost to your build if you don't have to. 18 millimetres thick, sorry, 44 millimetres wide. We can go and take this now to our bench and cut it. Again, as always, just check for any cracks, splits, check that it's not bowed. I'm going to measure out 114.5 on here. You can line that up and give it a cut. So what I've done then is I've just put it between the seatbelt guards here just to check that it fits, which it does. So now we can go ahead and we can cut the pieces that are going to provide our width. Mine is 30 centimetres deep, this section here, so I need to cut two pieces across here that are going to be 30 centimetres deep, but I also need to subtract the thickness of this piece of wood. There's also going to be one behind here, so I need to subtract two lots of the thickness, whatever piece of wood you're using. Mine's 1.8, so 2 lots is 3.6. I'll take that off of 30 centimetres, so I need to go and cut this piece down to 26.4 centimetres. Because I'm going to be using several pieces of this length, I'm going to go and clamp a few pieces together and cut them all at once on the table saw whilst I'm there to save a bit of time. Two more of the length as well. Again, clamping two pieces together. Okay, now we can go and join these together. Great, so there's all my pieces that I just cut, and I've just put it into place to just roughly see that it's all going to fit, and it does, which is cool. So we can go ahead and start putting some pocket holes in and joining this thing together. Again, that's what our pocket holes are going to look like. If you've not used a pocket hole jig before, this is made by Craig. There's a video on our wheel arch boxes video that will show you how to use those. So I'm going to put pocket holes in this side and the other side. It's going to end up looking like that. If you don't have the engine bay or anything else like that in the way, then of course you can actually go ahead and create a rectangle. So my wood here is 18mm thick. The nearest measurement I can get to on here is 19mm. So let's set this to 19. Same thing as before that we did with our kitchen unit and the wheel arch boxes. Now high speed on the drill, ready to create pocket holes. Same with our other side. Now we can go ahead and join these together. I'm going to go ahead and glue this. Again, using that Gorilla wood glue. Get our clamp. Check that it fits nicely, which it does. So I'm going to go ahead and put the screw in. You can add more clamps. Helps, which it always does. Screw it into place. Okay, and then you can release the clamp. Put a screw in this end, and we're going to wipe away any excess glue. Same on the other side. At this point, if you don't have an engine bay or anything in your way, you can turn this into a rectangle, so it would actually look something like that. Ideally, although we've put our pocket holes in this side, it's just come to my mind that the screws are actually heading out this way into less of the material. Really, you want them to go this way because then it's going to have a better purchase on all of this wood here. So we're going to go ahead now and we're going to create the top part of it, which is going to be the same as this, except for it's going to have this section across it as well. Mine are going to go one like that, we'll have one on top, and we're going to have some supports running across here, and we'll also create our internal boxes within it too. Cool, so you can get an idea of what it's going to look like when the bench seat is in. There's our frame, just roughly put together. So the next thing I'm going to do then is I'm going to create the box section here. So if I take this off, oh, I can show you. So I'm going to box off this bit and there'll be a piece running across here as well, and the same on that other side, so I'm going to do that next. And so hopefully you can see there's going to be a storage box there, one there, so I've put this section in place and I can measure the lengths that I need to cut for these two sections. So I'm going to straighten up as much as I can and measure the distance between these two. So I need one that's 11.5. So one's 12.5, a little bit more room on that side. If you did happen to get some bone wood that wasn't so good, now could be a good time to use it on these really small pieces. This is only 11.5 centimetres. You know, that bow isn't going to make too big a difference, so if it's totally pants, just get rid of it. Great, so that's what the little storage boxes are going to look like on that bottom section. It's not going to provide loads of storage, but it might be handy for some little trinkets, and I think every centimetre helps. Let's go ahead then and join all these up. See you again with our friend the Craig chip. So you can see our little storage boxes in there. Next thing then, we're going to attach our top base here, and we're going to add some supporting beams. So we know that we wanted our height to be no more than 34.8. So we're going to do 34.8 less the thickness here of this piece, so that's 4.4 centimetres. And again, this one will also be 4.4 centimetres. So we need to lose a total of 8.8 centimetres then on 34.8. So that will give us 26 centimetres. So I'm going to go and cut. I'm going to have one on each corner there, but I'm also going to put ones there, one there, one there and one there. So I need 8 in total, so I can go ahead and do that thing again where you clamp them all together and you can get some nice quick cuts all of the same height. So just to show you, we're doing the same again with the pocket hole joinery and slowly attaching all of these legs onto the base, and then we can add our top base using the pocket holes to shoot up the top side. There, so you can see our frame in place. I've also added a beam across there and across that side as well. But you can see our little box sections here that we can use for storage. I won't give you exact dimensions of what I'm doing because your van will most probably be different to this van, and hopefully you can just follow what I'm doing to suit your own needs and find your own measurements as you go along. So we're following the same pocket hole rules as we go along, using the pocket hole jig for everything. So just quickly show you the update. You can see that I've now added in that sort of internal rectangle there. I'm going to put a lip on that, just like we did in our kitchen unit there with the MDF shelf. We'll do the same here and we'll put the MDF over the top. Next up, I'm going to put one beam across here at the very top to help support the slats, and I'm also going to put one beam from there over to there, which is going to support the MDF shelf. Great, so hopefully you can see, just added that structural support in there, and I've also added a support beam across here which is going to support our MDF shelf when it goes in. I think all I'm going to really do now on the frame is probably add a support just down here vertically across the front of that piece of the frame, because there is room for that to bow a little bit when you put some weight on it. So I'll have to do that tomorrow, so it's starting to get a bit dark, but we'll get back to it then. Right, so thinking ahead a little bit, I'm going to start actually filling some of these pocket holes in, just so that I can get straight onto the painting as soon as I've added the other supporting beams. So these are what the little plugs look like if you ever want to use any of these. They'll just simply be pushed into there. I'm going to take some of this and just do it by hand today. Fill it in. So a few things I'm just going to point out very quickly. As I said, I was going to put in some supporting beams here, here and here. Because the face of these are all 18mm wide, I've gone ahead and I've cut these to 18mm wide as well, so that it all looks the same. If that makes sense. And what I'm going to do next, I'm going to put a little hole in here. What I'm eventually going to do is this will be in place like so, and like we did in our kitchen unit, I'm going to have a piece of twine that's going to run across here like that, just sort of to give it a bit of a rustic application. So that hole's going to allow the twine to go through that piece of timber. This twine, I've just tested it through here, will fit through a 12mm hole. So I've got a flat bit here which is going to create that nice circle. I've measured out the middle point and we're going to drill straight down from there. And we've got to try and keep this as straight as possible. If you have a drill press, this will ensure that you have a nice straight finish, but if you don't, you just got to be very careful with your drill. So we have all our structure together now for the bench seat. What I want to do now is I'm going to create a lip all across this middle section here so that the MDF can sit on it and act as the shelf. So hopefully you can see this. I'll be putting a thinner piece of wood across it like that, and I'll do this around all the edges here, and then the MDF can simply sit on top of there as a support. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to be using these pieces of timber. They're 20.5 by 20.5 mil wide, or a 1x1 that's been planed down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this as a spacer, turn it over like so, and I can pop it into place, and then I can use that thickness to draw a line across here. The reason I'm doing this is because I'm going to put my tongue and groove boards across here, across this section here, but obviously I don't want to come any higher than the lip itself. It's going to stop the MDF from sitting on the top, so I'm just going to go around all of these areas now and just using that as a spacer. So this is the face of our unit. I'm going to stick some tongue and groove all across this bit here and this section. This bit's going to be left open as a shelf. We'll tongue and groove this side, and we'll also do the back as well, and on that side. Cool, so as before then, because I'm cutting a whole bunch of pieces to the same size, I've actually clamped 5 of these together so I can get this done quicker. Okay, so we're ready to start gluing and screwing these on. So I'm going to turn the face down like this so I can see that line I drew. So the first piece, I'm going to want to put that right up against the side there. Take our wood glue, this front section here, butt it up against that line, and then we can screw it into place. And if you've got a nail gun, you could just tack it in. I'm using some very small screws here. Make sure you get the right drill bit to fit nicely into the head so you don't strip the head of these screws. So there's our first board in, and we're going to continue that along. Slot these in. It should look something like that across the bottom. Alright, so you can see all of our front panel here has been tongue and grooved. It was pretty straightforward, to be honest. The only bit that was difficult, I had to use the jigsaw to cut a little slot to fit around this supporting beam behind it there. But aside from that, yeah, pretty straightforward. I did cut off that edge on the table saw and this one as well, just to get a nice straight finish, and so obviously to make that piece fit. I'm going to go ahead and do this side now, and then we can do the back bit and also this side too. So after you've glued and screwed or nailed it in place, go ahead and wipe away all the excess glue that might have been squeezed out. You can put these tongue groove boards in front of your frame, but to me personally I think it looks more pleasing to be behind it. I think it gives it a nicer finish. Don't worry too much about the screws showing on this side because no one's going to see that when that's in place. You of course don't have to do this, but just do it to whatever your personal preference is. Cool, so that's all dried off. Let's just try and show you around it. Yeah, this is our lip here that our MDF board will sit over the top of, and obviously all around this side. I was going to put some of this on this side, but I think there'll be enough of a lip here off the tongue and groove board, so I'm going to measure this out, cut some MDF and see if it'll fit. So I'm going to check that it fits. Yeah. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take it out. So I want this bit to be brown, just like in our kitchen unit, as it is. And I'll go ahead and sand all this down, and then we'll paint it, and then we'll attach that to this lip around here. So before we pen it, we obviously want to make sure this is all nice and sanded and smooth. I'm going to go ahead and sand down all the areas that we filled with wood filler earlier. I'm going to start with a 60 grit and then work our way down. One thing you might want to do is soften up these edges. So they're quite hard edges at the moment where they've just been planed and squared off. So what you can do is take your sander and just run it across at a 45-degree angle. So hopefully you can see that. It's just rounded off the edge slightly. Folks, so we've already given this one coat of paint and I've let it dry. So I'm going for a second coat, as it says here on the tin. So I'm going for this Dulux Easy Care range because it's washable. You are going to get marks in your camper van being in such a tight area, so getting a decent paint like that is pretty handy. So yeah, I'm just going to go over with a second coat, leave it to dry, and then we'll be ready to install it. Alright, so the workshop situation has been upgraded slightly after the farmer here, Richard, very kindly allowed me to use this space for the same price of the other one that I was using. So Richard, if you're watching, thank you very much. It's going to be a big help. As you can see from this photo, the weather hasn't been so kind recently. So we should be on our way a lot quicker now. Anyway, our bench seat is in place. Sort of. It's been painted, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to attach the MDF top to it next. So we're going to put the MDF shelf on now, so I've already cut that size as we saw previously. I'm going to use our favourite wood glue. I'm going to lay this all around the edges here on these shelf supports. It's been pretty cold. I think this is going to struggle to come out. So yeah, just lay it all across the edges. And then we're going to slot that in. There we go, nice. Just check on the edges and see if there's any excess glue. And if you're alright, then you can go ahead and you can put a few screws in. I'm literally only going to put a few because that Gorilla wood glue is so strong it's going to hold it in place pretty well. But I'll put about 3 in just for good measure. Remembering to drill pilot holes as always. You can put these wherever you like, across the lip. So yeah, you can go around and put as many screws as you like. Another reason to put some screws in is actually to make sure that the MDF is adhering properly to the lip and with the glue in between. So I'm going to go ahead and screw those in and then we're done. Cool, so next up I'm going to put a twine piece across the front of my bench seat, just like we did there on the kitchen unit. So as you can see, I started threading it through. So I know that I've put this up 3 centimetres high, this hole here. So I've marked off the same here. I'm going to drill a little pilot hole to help our cut hook thread through. I'm just going to put it in place for now to help me gauge the size of the twine. Same this side. Twist that one in. So yeah, then I'll twine again. It's going to run across here. We're going to make the little curtain holders that we did before. So I'm kind of going to do this in place because I've drilled a hole here. I obviously can't push this through that hole once it's done because it's too small. Again, for a better description of this, you can go on to the kitchen unit video. I'll tell you on there. There's my loop. course you don't have to make these. I'm just putting them on there because I think they look cool. But you might think, what a ball ache. Why am I going to do that? Sit in place, and we're going to trim off any untidy areas. Could even add a little dab of glue in there just to make sure the end doesn't come away. And then I'm going to go around and just pick off any of that excess glue that managed to make its way through. Okay, and then we'll do the same on the other side, and then we'll attach it. Like me, if you're threading this through a hole like this, you're going to need to bring this nice and taut, and then you will have to estimate it to size basically. So I'm probably going to leave about an inch once it's taut and cut it. You'll see once you put the loop in, it'll sit across there. So to install this, because it's so tight now, what I do is, as I'm going to be pushing it in that way, as that turns, it then causes the twine on the other end to twist like this. So what I do beforehand is I twist it the opposite way a number of times. You kind of just have to judge this as you go. Okay, then you'll probably find that your twine will shorten. Put the hook in. Okay. Then I start turning. So then it will start unravelling what we've just done. Okay. So almost ready to actually screw this into place. The trouble I have here is that I've got this engine bay sitting in the way, and of course I need this to be removable in case anyone needs to access the engine bay. So what I'm going to do is, instead of screwing this all the way in through the base of the vehicle, I'm going to screw it into the flooring, which is of course screwed into the base of the vehicle. So this is going to make it a lot easier to remove. I'm using 70mm screws here, so if you take some screws and you butt it up against the side of your thing and against the flooring, you can see whereabouts it's going to sit. So I'm going to go ahead, drill some pilot holes and screw it in. So I'm going to go about halfway along our workpiece here. I need pushes underneath. I want to make sure that our drill is nice and straight. We don't want it going off at an angle. I'm going to countersink the top. Okay, and that will allow the head of the screw to sit quite nicely. I should countersink itself to a certain extent, but I find that sometimes it does actually split the wood a little. So then, taking our drill bit with the correct size for the head, we can then go ahead and start screwing it down. Now, when anyone needs to access the engine bay, they can do so by removing these screws. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to set a few of these all around, because we need to make sure that in the case of an accident that this will stay in place. Of course, if you don't have your engine bay sat behind your bench seat, wherever you're placing it, then you can screw it in permanently. You can take it right into the van floor. Next up, we want to do our slats across here. I've chosen slats because it helps the material breathe from underneath rather than putting a piece of plywood across it. We're going to have some little spaces in between, like so. So our slats will sit kind of like that. I'm going to cut a bunch of pieces like this, and I'm going to show you a method to make this a little quicker. Previously I showed you how to make several cuts at once by clamping several pieces of wood together and then cutting it all at once. What I'm doing here is I'm actually using a spacer, so I've clamped this to my table saw, and what I can do, once I know I've set it up to the right size, is I can just butt that up against there, bring that down and make the cut. and then I always know that it's going to be the same size as this piece. So I can go ahead and do that several times. So I'm going to go ahead now and cut the longer slats to the length of my bench seat, which is 114.5 in my case. Just going to give the edges a quick sand because they're a little rough. So there's the slats in place. I've checked that they all fit correctly. So I can go ahead now and I can glue and screw these down. Cool, so I'll clamp all these in place just to make sure it's not going to go anywhere. I'm going to add in 2 holes as I go along. So just before I screw all of these in, I've drawn a line across the middle here of all these pieces. And I'm actually going to mark out where I want all these screws to go. This is probably a bit over the top. 1 centimetre in from each side. It's just going to make it look better than just eyeballing it and then all going wonky. You can see I've drawn that line all the way through the middle, and then I'm going to put 2 screws in each piece, so I've come in 1 centimetre on each side. Sink it a little. It's probably me just being totally over the top here. Most people will probably just drive a screw straight in. Do that with all of these. And then it's job done. And there we go. All screwed into place. So 2 on each panel that side, 2 on each panel that side, and 1 on each panel across the middle here. So as you can probably see, it's all starting to come along. Starting to take shape here.
Thanks for stopping by, everybody. Please like and subscribe and check out our other content on all things camper. As I mentioned before, I've just recorded my first album and need all the help I can get. So I'll leave you with an album preview for now and a link in the description if you'd like to pick up a copy.
She does all that she can. Yes, anymore. Time, I'm heading west, yeah, till I cross that line. $6 short, but my soul is clean. I need 1 more dime. The fruit machine swirling waves on me. Yeah. You put their cold and harsh demeanor. It'll soon come back around. So don't let the bastards get